check, everyone. YouTube. Let me make sure yours is the one that we're worried about. For us, yeah, you're showing up as live. That's fine. That's all right.
And I've put it to monetize, so I can make my 5 cents.
Yeah. Well, I never put mine to bloody monetize. It's just right. If you're live, I must be live. So let me go here. Check my channel. View your channel. Yay, I'm live. And now we gotta go on the old TikTok and get that chat up because it never. Yeah, just why does it do that? I don't know why. TikTok hates me. It genuinely doesn't like me. I didn't do anything to you, TikTok. Right. View profile. And we're live. Right. Okay.
First watcher. Hi, Dennis.
Yeah, first one in. Right. So everyone's all right. I've got that chat up. So how do I need another? Do you know what? I need another screen. Just I'm gonna put
Dennis,
one chat.
I did a big drive today and went to visit your great grandparents' land in Tipperary. As the song said, Tipperary so far away, it's bloody far. Hi, Kara. Hope you're well. Hope the weather in Mayo is as nice as it is down here in the southwest. TikTok hates me. TikTok hates everybody.
Yeah,
Hi,
TikTok
Tom.
does. I mean, I've given TikTok enough reason to hate me, to be fair. So I don't blame it. Right, hang on. I need to separate these two screens so I can have the two chats up. Right, so the too many screens, and I'm on all of them, so I don't know which one to look at. So you're just gonna
do YouTube. That's why I only do YouTube.
I mean, I've got Restream here. I've got TikTok here. So we'll just go for that. Okay, so we went to have Philip tonight. He is. And if you hear a bit of echo, this room's in the middle of being, or you can't see it because of my screen, but it's in the middle of being repainted. So there's nothing in it to block the sound. But we might not have Philip tonight because he's away in Thailand. He may join later, but he's away on a wee bit of a break, well-earned break. So we're just gonna stick to the normal format. Hi Molly, how are we doing? Normal format. We're just gonna have a bit of a chat. You guys ask your Irish questions, family questions, but now not family trees, but origins and locations and stuff like that, and we'll try and fill the gaps. But yeah, so we were sort of joking about just before off stream. We were joking about St. Patrick and some of the weird and wonderful commentary we get on our video comments. Owen had a fantastic one that St. Patrick wasn't real or a real person, but a Roman conspiracy, which I thought was brilliant. And how are we doing, Poison? Yeah, I'm related to Brian Boru and wanted to know more about him. Yeah, we could get into Brian Boru as well. I mean, he has inadvertently he has connections to Cashel, and his family do anyway.
Very inadvertently.
Yeah, well, I mean, they owned it for a little while before they gave it away. But yes, but I do have a video on him. So, but we're all related to Brian, and I think he's a bit like he's the Munster version of Niall Nogla. We're all descended. Once you get past a certain generation, we're all interconnected. But yeah, we were talking about. So we started talking on history of religion in Ireland, Catholicism, Protestantism, but mainly the bishops and ecclesi. Can you pronounce that word for me again, please? Because I can't pronounce it.
Ecclesiastical.
There you go. There's that word. So yeah, and I just kind of got me thinking. There was a subject that I was sort of reading into, which over the last couple of days since St. Patrick's Day, which was the brutal diplomacy of Irish medieval bishops, and then some of the dioceses and whatnot. So yeah, so we're just gonna chat away. Did you hear about the Irish shoplifter? He was caught on the Tesco's.
He was lifting the shop.
Oh my goodness gracious! But yeah, so yeah, there was we were talking about that. We were talking about a lot of other things. So yeah, I mean, medieval bishops, religion, all that sort of thing. You know, I think whenever we think of to dispel some of the myths, there's no Roman conspiracy about St. Patrick. There is an Armagh conspiracy about St. Patrick, in the fact that most of what we know about him was propagated by Armagh to make him the spiritual leader of Christianity in Ireland. But that, again, it all comes down to politics, not religion.
The funny thing about Patrick is his Confessio, which is the first writing about Ireland as such. But the Armagh version is not the full version. They edited it a bit. The full version is they found it in other copies of it from outside Ireland, which goes against the conspiracy. And the fact is, one of the things that highlights like why this is a real document is the Latin. It's quite a different form of Latin. Sort of, it's kind of educated culture Latin of the Roman Empire.
We're already getting names flying in here. Who are the? I won't. I just read it as I see them, but I will come back to them. But who are the mightiest of the Dalcosh? Well, I would say the O'Briens are, mainly because they lead it. But the McNamara's are a good second. They were very, very close to the inner circle of the O'Briens. The Kennedys often did a pretty good job of putting their position in as well. But they're across the other side of the Shannon, so maybe they had a bit more independence than some other Dalcosh families. The thing about I don't know if you can see. Let me get this map up. Oh, you can't really see here. But on the top sort of left up there, there's like the Considines, who were, even though they are direct descendants of the O'Briens, they remained quite relatively small. Sort of coming from Constantine, but they remained a quite a small family. And then they were often, the Dalcosh often had, where you see the McCurtains, the O'Neills, the O'Loughlin's in the north there, the Burren. They had a lot of problems sort of containing that area in their early history. The Burren was quite a rebellious area. Until the Mackie Breens, I believe, ended up there. And then they were a branch of the O'Briens, and they became quite a rebellious branch of the O'Briens as well. They never really heeded to the main branch. So yeah, I mean, it depends on what century you're sort of looking at, whether which family would be the most powerful, but I would say the prominent ones would be the leading one, which is the O'Briens.
Where did you get that map from?
I made that map.
Okay.
It's not an accurate. So obviously, it's more like a general location of where the branches septs originate from.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's not to scale because it's obviously that would, down to the barony level or down to the townland level would be
No,
very
because
hard.
I was seeing McCarthy in Cork and O'Sullivan in South Kerry and Fitzgerald and Butler, and I was going, oh, that's a bit odd, because when Fitzgerald and Butler came in, the McCarthys were pushed westward. But if it's origin, yeah.
It's either origin or, well, obviously I can't. The Fitzgeralds and Butlers being English and Cambro Norman, I couldn't have them. So it's more of a when it comes to the Norman families or English families, it comes to more of a like their hotspot, as it were.
That's an interesting map, especially because most maps, they kind of present a very frozen picture of history, sort of as this was the territory of the O'Neills, this was the territory of the O'Briens, of Cashel, etc. Whereas from that map, you can see, okay, like the O'Driscolls, I think, stayed more or less where they originated. The O'Sullivans moved a bit. The McCarthys, like several of the O'Nock families, got pushed west. The O'Briens moved a bit, and like you'll find O'Brien influence all the way up to Cashel. So it's actually quite an interesting map.
Well, it's something I just sort of did on a couple of lives where I would just sort of write it in and say, look, well, you see the McCarthys, obviously big family, get big name. McAuliffe's sort of found up here.
Yeah.
I mean, it's again like any map, it's only a freeze frame because, like you say, if you look at where the McQuirk's sort of name is, to the right of that you've got Cashel, which is obviously where the O'Nock sort of their capital was in Tipperary. So, the Collinses they show up in Limerick, but obviously many of the Collinses would end up down where that O'Kelly is. And that Barry is because they would be pushed out of their territories by Fitzgerald's O'Briens. So yeah, again, it's another one that's sort of a snapshot. What I would ideally love to do is have it on a scroller. So as you scroll along the dates, you can sort of see how families move. But that's
or disappear, or change.
or change from Irish spelling to Anglicized spelling. Some someone was asking there the first time I've seen Quirk. There's a few Quirk branches seps that are around. There's that are unrelated to each other.
Tom is asking a question. I think
yes.
the birth name of Cuchulainn Setanta refers to the Briganti subtribe. I think the origin story of Cuchulainn might actually record a real marriage alliance between Ullad and the Brigantes. What do you think?
I think the that refers to Briganti subtribe. I think the origin story might actually record a real marriage. No, see, I think Cuchulainn is it's actually it's Indo-European in origin. I think it's a story that we have carried along as a human race. Which is why the story is so familiar to Iranians, so familiar to Greeks. The names change, the locations change, but the story pretty much stays very similar. Or the story of the Iranian Rostam and his son it is almost mirrors Cuchulainn. So I think the places change, the locations change due to who's telling the story to make it more appealing to the audience that you're saying it to. Obviously, you don't want to be telling early medieval Iron Age people about someone from a far off land you've never heard of. You want them to be invoking feelings for the area that you're in. So I don't think there could be partial truth in it, because you're gonna embellish with modern politics of that time when but the story's been retold in so many different locations at so many different times, and then we've got maybe one or two. No, I think we've only got one version of it, from one specific area, rather than the story that has been told all through Ireland. So I don't really think it has any relation to Brigantes. I'm skeptical of even the Brigantes, the tribe of Brigantes in Britain, actually being related to the Irish Brigantes, as in like being a branch of them. I have no problem with it being politically aligned or whatever, but as a specific branch of them, I'm skeptical. But then again, talking about Iron Age groups is problematic anyway, because we don't know enough about them.
I tend to agree with you, though. JP or J.S. Mallory, he wrote that very good history of early Ireland, but he also wrote The Irish Dreamtime, where he looks through Gaelic mythology and tries to tie it into history. And he basically says this mythology is not a good window into the Iron Age, into looking backwards. It is a good window into when they were written down. So it's a good description of what's going on in early medieval times. And again, I'm also very skeptical about Brigantes, about people taking Roman categorizations of Britain and Gaul and apply, which are complicated in themselves, and then applying them to Ireland, which is even more complicated. I think a lot of this mythology was written down because they're good stories. The Cuchulainn stories are nuts. There is a comic, and I think it's still going. I read it when I was young, 2000 AD. And they had, and I think he still exists, a guy called Sláine, which was roughly based on Irish mythology. I loved it, and I see sometimes I got ordered through the library some of the big books of it, but it's not history. It's entertainment. It's good comics. He draws on Irish mythology, but it's not history at all. So you have to be careful with these stories. They are primarily there to entertain. Digging into them, Maeve apparently was originally linked with Tara. So Maeve, many people talk Maeve being a goddess, which is probably true, but more linked with Tara than elsewhere. Cuchulainn, some people call him the Irish Hercules. It's other, perhaps, but you have to be very, very careful. And then I'm a bit more skeptical about people say, yes, some of these stories will date way back, but you have to be like, as they get transmitted, they change. So you can trace parts of some stories going back to Indo-European, but they will change and be adapted in different things. They provide a very good insight into forms of entertainment and descriptions of early medieval Ireland, but not of politics. Not of politics at all, because most of the time, if they're talking about politics, they're talking about their own politics and they're disguising it.
Yeah, exactly. I just want to get some of the people are on TikTok are asking for their names. I'll try and get into the names as we get along the discussion, and people asking questions on our other platforms. So please don't think I'm ignoring you. I will try and go through some of the names as they come up. But yeah, someone was asking about the Dunn family, or the Doyne family, or the Diana family. They're all variations of the different variations of the same surname that has been anglicized to the same variation. You have Scottish, English branches of the surname that arrive in Ireland. The two main sort of families that you sort of get with the Dunns are the Laois family that are then later moved. They're dispossessed the lands and sort of moved towards sort of modern day Tara. So they're the sort of one that the most people would sort of be aware of and would sort of track. I think they have early links to, if you look on that map, hang on. Oh, you can't see it, but on the top right is Brega, just above the Yellow Colgans. North of there is Brega, the Kingdom of Brega. They have early connections to there too. And then you have obviously the English and Scottish surnames, which all get anglicized to Dunn later on. Someone was asking about who is it? One of the early ones here. Mooney. Mooney has multiple origin points. You have the Efiacra. You have Clanmyrtle in Roscommon. You have the Silanica in Galway. You have the Leinster branch as well, the Offaly Laois zone or area that they sort of come from. It's mostly associated with Munster. That's kind of where most people. County Donegal as well has got a sept as well, who I believe were earners of a church. I don't know the church off by heart. I'd have to, when I do a video on them, I'd have to get them. But you can see that obviously, they are named 5 different sort of septs, and there's probably more. But I don't know them all off by heart. I just know where some of the main ones are, and sometimes the odd random one that most people aren't following.
I was going to say, Donna Dallas has asked here, do you know anything about, I haven't seen this name before, Mac Virrick, also known today as Curry?
Sorry, you're going to have to just blow the question up quicker. Let me see.
2111, it was asked at 2111. Also known
Scroll
as Curry.
2111. Oh, hang on. I'm way down the bottom. I'm miles away. Let me see. Just. Here we go. Donna Dallas. Do you know anything about McMurroch, also known as Curry? So Curry is again, that's obviously an anglicization. So you have English branches of the surname Curry too. Sometimes you spell it with an I, but it's obviously sometimes spelled with a Y. Curry can be found. I don't know if it's on this map actually. Let's go back to this map. No, I maybe didn't get it on the spot. So Curry has a Munster branch. I believe they are related to the Silanica of Roscommon, and then I believe there's an Oanocta branch as well, who are obviously related to the Oanocta. So there's but Curry's also an anglicization of Macquarie, as well. So you get McCrories in Ulster, which then can become curry as well. Yeah, the Cylanica branch or Clare. I'm not sure if they're related to the Dalcash or the Cylanica, but they're around the sort of Galway, which is why I thought they might be on that map there. Is from the Ó Cumry. And then you have obviously the Scottish curries as well, curry coming across. So there's quite a the Macquarie, O'Cora, Ó Cumry, and there's probably others. So you find it around Clare, Ulster, and Munster.
Okay. Just staying on surnames briefly. Just after that, great grand born from Mali, 619. Great grand born in Cleathormore in Cumbria, known as Little Ireland. Her dad moved there to work in iron ore mines. She was a Lacey. Where did they work? Where did they originate? The Lacey's came in with the Norman/Anglo-Normans, and then they spread. So I think that's the origin of the name. Where it originates before they came to Ireland, I must admit, I do not know.
The de Lacys are a Norman family as well. They claim descent from, like all good Norman families, they claim descent later on from the families that came across with William the Conqueror. But most historians have tried to trace a lot of these families to the Knights of William the Conqueror. I believe, because when William the Conqueror actually comes across, there's really only a handful of major landholders. I mean, obviously lots of knights were given small parcels of land, but England was basically parceled up amongst like 5 individuals. It really was just a group of core landholding families and a few knights. And believe it or not, these knights aren't well recorded for about 100 years, and then everyone starts. I believe the de Lacys start to claim descent from, but de Lacy is a place in France, so they're obviously from Norman descent. And obviously,
I thought you were going to say that they claim descent from Odin. If you look at supposedly some of the first Saxon groups that are supposed to have come to the Saxon shore and then into Britain, there's 2 brothers that are famous, and many of them claim descent from Odin. And like you kind of find that later, sort of a descent from Odin, descent from in the Greeks was descent from Zeus, and then they throw in a god. Like it was very common among elites, and then when they become Christianized, you find like the Irish invented the story of I think the grandfather of Mill. He married. They just copied the story of Moses, and they invented Scotia, the supposed daughter of a pharaoh. The English went one better. They invented a guy called Brutus, who was a son of the king of Troy, and somehow or other came over to England and created a kingdom in England before the Romans. And like in the 16th century, you will find people claiming descent from Brutus and justifying the rule of Ireland because of Brutus and also because of Arthur. These stories were quite important for a long time. And in relation to that, someone mentioned Shakespeare. Now, Shakespeare is interesting in Ireland because he was writing in the 1590s, and from the 1590s on. In the 1590s, England was fighting its Vietnam War in Ireland. What does Shakespeare not write about? Ireland, except there is one little mention in the middle of it. Is it Henry V or Henry VI? And he basically talks about the Earl of Essex going to come back with rebellion broached on a sword. So he throws in a little verse for no real reason in the middle of this play about Essex, who then goes and makes a complete mess of things. If you look at Macbeth, there's a mention of Gallowglass and Kern in Macbeth, completely anachronistic. And then there is in one of the Henrys, there is a Captain MacMorris talking about what is my nation. It's a bit of a famous speech. Apart from that, there's nothing in Shakespeare about Ireland. It's probably, for me, I'm convinced it's a question of censorship. He's afraid to talk about Ireland because he'll get into big trouble because things are very, very difficult. And then when James comes along, he also doesn't mention he doesn't mention much about Ireland either. So Shakespeare is interesting. His plays are interesting view of English history, but the absence of Ireland to me in his plays is this silence screams loudly.
I just want to say thank you for the super chat. I know your real name, but obviously I'll just use your Tom, and I'll just use your tag there. So $10 super chat, really do appreciate it. Corcoran's a Fermanagh surname from about 1100, but the set name possibly from the 5th century, and a classical set named after Saint Shannon. Friend's personal name was Corcoran. What say is? Well, I mean, obviously, no name comes from the 5th century, but there is a branch of Corcorans from Fermanagh. I believe, actually, I was looking at these once when you sort of said there was your name, that they're located in Devonish in Fermanagh, and they're actually seen in the 11th century, 1001, I believe is one of the records, states that the E. Corcoran, and then they sort of start appearing sort of by the middle of the 11th century in a bit more, a few more records because of obviously there are classical connections to Devonish, and I believe they have a few bishops as well. Where's that place? Clonfert. So, there's another one, the McCochrans as well, who are part of the Ely Carroll, or the Ely E. Kerbal, as well. So you get them further south, but obviously Corcorans, stuff like that. I'm not sure of the etymology of the name, whether you've got to be very careful of whenever you hear these sort of stories about why they took their name. A lot of this is clan tradition, what I would call it. Normally when I'm referring to clan tradition, it's the stories that they passed on through a couple of generations or maybe thousands of generations, but they're not rooted in historical fact, as in we don't have an actual record of it. So it should be taken with a pinch of salt. Whenever you hear a lot of families, most families have clan traditions, and they're great, and and I'm all up for them. I think they really sort of they're true to Irish form, which is storytelling, especially around lineage. But they should be taken as just that sometimes, as storytelling and not literal fact, as with all genealogies. So just
okay. Someone is asking about McGuinness, and to me, I think isn't McGuinness a version of McGuinness from Northeast Ulster?
Yeah, I mean, the McGuinness family of Ulster are probably the most famous
This is
branch.
he spells it Ginnis, Guinness. Well,
Yeah,
I don't the same as Guinness as in the drink.
yes, there we go. Yeah, so Guinness, it doesn't matter. That's just how it's been anglicised, more than likely. So you have in the northeast of Ulster, you have the Eachaf Covo, who are a group in around. They're based around Tandragee, so Armagh, South Down, and that sort of area. So yeah, they're the leading family, along with relations to who are the other no, it's the Hanlons are from Tandragee Castle. Apologies, but they're related to the McGuinnesses. The McGuinnesses are slightly more to the east. But they're still in the same location. They are the most famous, one of the most famous families because of Guinness, who claim descent from. They're from an area called Ivey, and the Guinness is not the Tandragee.
Ivy.
Well, Ivy, because there's a similar name in Kerry. That is the Kerry pronunciation.
Ivera is different from Ivy.
Yes, but there's an Ivy, and so we used to have this discussion. There's the Ivy House, which is another pronunciation. It is an acceptable pronunciation of the name.
Okay. Behind in Stephen's Green, there where the UCD part is still hanging in there. Behind that is the Ivy Gardens from this district, but don't look for the Ivy Gardens. They have concerts there now. It's like you can get there through Ulfred's Terrace, and it's a very nice place. I think built by the Guinness family originally, but it's a very nice place. But it's the Ivy Gardens. That's the Dublin pronunciation.
Yeah, we used to have a cinema in Bombridge.
Yeah.
It's called the Ivy. So yeah, there's a lot of it's County Down Armagh anyway. And they're from the Eachaf Covo, so which is the major group. But I do believe the name does appear all over Ireland, but there's a debate whether it's a name that's adopted because it comes from Macangasa, is the original pronunciation of the name, or the original variation. It's a variation of Macangasa, and obviously Angasa is quite a common surname in Ireland, or quite a common name in Ireland. So yeah, and like I said, they're related to like the McCartons and whatnot. So yeah, McGuinness doesn't matter on the variation, the spelling of it. Most likely related. I know the Dublin branch, their records only went as far back as Dublin, when they were given their first bit of land, but they claimed descent from, which is why they named their house. They often tried to promote that link to the ancient Ulster dynasty.
I find the thing interesting that to me it's Ivy House, to you it's Ivy, because if you look at the Irish language, Ireland is a small island. Irish is spoken by a relatively small group of people these days, but there is major differences in pronunciation between, like for example, between West Kerry and West Kerry Irish, between Galway Irish, between Donegal Irish. And I often wonder, do these differences in pronunciation lead to different surnames? Because
yes,
most surnames are anglicizations, bad anglicizations. And when you have different Irish pronunciations of the same word, it must result in different family names.
Yes, so you have the problem is actually it goes that way. So you have the McCorries, the O'Corrers, the I'm trying to think of all the Curry ones again, all the Cymries. So they all get anglicized to Curry, but because obviously the English language becomes standardized in the 19th century. So the pronunciation of a word, so like a lot of families would just adopt the wider grouping name. So we have McCowells and becoming Campbells. We have the O'Howells becoming the Hamills. Just because the family name in that area that's the bigger family name. Whether they're related or not, it's just similar in etymology. It's similar in pronunciation to their. There's a branch of Sullivans in Ulster, and their surname would be closer pronunciation of Sullivan instead of Sullivan. So but they became Sullivans because standardization of the English language, that was the most prominent name. So you get these sort of variations in so what you normally get is 4 or 5 Irish names becoming one English name, or what we would call an Anglo-Irish sort of surname, rather than the other way around. And then you have just different spelling of it, really. So yeah, it's probably the most common way that you get the errors in our surnames. Not only that, you have a lot of families that try to revert back in the 20th century, when we had this sort of mass wave of nationalism sweeping through Europe, that they tried to revert back to their Irish form. So they've been erroneously changed into, let's say, Tully had become Flood, the surname Flood. And then you had people with the surname Flood trying to go back to being Tullys or Tullas. And they were never Tullys in the first place. They were always Floods. They were English Floods. They were Scottish. Yeah. So, or they were just people who ended up with the surname Flood for a multitude of different reasons. So you have these people now have re-Gaelicized their names to Tully, and they were never Tullys to begin with. Or they have like Doyles, who be like my family are Doyles, but you have O'Doyles, but the Doyle surname never had an O in front of it. And they were putting Macs in front of their names that should never have had a Mac in front of it. So our surnames have gone through quite a few transitions, and none of them good.
And like another thing I noticed down here in South Kerry, people still have this habit of, when they're talking about somebody, dropping the O. Like a farmer died near me last week, one of my neighbors. He has the same surname as me, but they don't use the O. They just say Neil. And the same with Sullivan. O'Sullivan becomes Sullivan. And I have a feeling this is a deep-rooted habit here. And 200 years ago, it probably caused a lot of confusion. And several people will be Sullivan, Shea, Falvey, because they dropped the O. Or
yes.
The O got dropped in them.
So by the 16th, 17th century, 90%, maybe even more, 90% of families didn't have the O or Mac in front of their name.
Yeah. And then like here, because there's so many O'Sullivans, all O'Sullivans have a nickname. And over time, that nickname becomes will become a surname as such. Sort of O'Sullivan. Well, there's about 50 different O'Sullivan families. They each have their own nickname, and they'll eventually become their own. Which happens, like, if you look at the big seps, O'Neills, the O'Neills split a lot. Clandyboy O'Neills, the Fuse, Dungannon, Clanart, etc., etc. the sons of Shane O'Neill were Mac Shanes.
Mm-hmm.
If like it hadn't been destroyed, you probably would have a group of people. Maybe you do in Northern Ireland at the moment, a group of people called Mac Shane who are descendants of Shane O'Neill's sons.
Yeah, it's quite common for, like you said, for septs to branch off and take on a name of names. Names were founded by your Eponus ancestor, an ancestor who'd done a great deed or been important or been, it's a title deed, it's a claim to something. Normally it's land or a title, like a lordship. You are claiming descent from an individual who held this land or lordship because you want to retain it or have claim to it or have the prestige that comes with being related to this individual. And then you may just be a guy who ends up in a clan land area and adopts a name for the protection of that lord or to show allegiance to that lord. So you might not be related to the individual at all. Our surname's not polygenetic. They are early location markers. They are identity markers. They are like many nations, like saying I am Irish, I am American. These are just ways of people from a local area to sort of say I am this person, I'm related to this person. You mess with me, you mess with it. And families were not shy on embellishing who they were related to, and sort of saying, oh, well, new kings would come into the area, new dynasties would rise, and suddenly the genealogies of a family would change. Miraculously,
Yeah.
you were actually, oh, look, actually, do you know what, Mr. O'Neill, as you're invading my country, I've just found this piece of paper that says I'm related to Niall of the Nine Hostages. How crazy is that? We're cousins. Leave me alone.
And then throw in some sort of relationship with important saints. Like go anywhere, almost anywhere in Ireland, and St. Patrick was there, even though it's fairly obvious he wasn't. Like the O'Neills, like I think it's Fahan in the Inishowen Peninsula, Saint Mora, who's the patron saint of the O'Neills supposedly, but there are stories about St. Patrick meeting Niall of the Nine Hostages' son, Owen, of whom the Kennel Owen came. Supposedly he met him. And there are the stories about St. Patrick meeting the ancestor behind so many septs. And they can't all be true. Someone is asking about O'Quigley, Tristan Fosbury. What about the O'Quigleys from Armagh?
From Armagh?
Yeah, it's 2140. 2140 at the time.
Let me see if I can see them. Let me get the 21. Did you say 2140?
Yeah, it's two masters. Tristan Fosbury.
Let me see here. Let me go to the turn on for. Why am I not seeing? I have to hang on my screen. Hey, okay, that's because it's two messages. Sorry. I'm not really sure of like a specific branch of Quigleys from Armagh. I think Tom was saying there about that a bunch of them are related to the McGuinnesses who we spoke about earlier. If they're related to the McGuinnesses, then, like I said, they're going to be Each of Cobbo, or at least claim it, and they're going to be in sort of South Down, Armagh. That sort of, I don't even have a blooming map. and whenever I do this, I don't know what everyone's screen sees, but you're sort of looking north of that O'Reilly, sort of northeast of that O'Reilly. I really should get a map.
O'Reilly's at the very top. We can't see above it.
Yeah. So just where you see that O'Reilly sort of head northeast, that's sort of the area that you're looking for. The Cobbo actually are quite a unique group in the sense with their relation to the Anglo-Normans in Ulster. They actually had quite a good relation. Although the Normans would build a line of ring forts along the border, not ring forts, Motte and Bailey's. They would never reinforce them, so they actually ended up just sort of disappearing over time. They never built them out of stone or anything like that. So they managed to retain quite a lot of their independence, sort of tipping the hat to the Corsies and whatnot. But at the same time, they were doing their own thing. They were managing to raid and sort of own their own lands and whatnot. I know more about the group, the Ifeakar. So from Mayo would be the family that I would normally associate Quigley with, which isn't there. That would be the group I would normally associate Mayo with. Quigley with. I know there's some branches in Donegal, but I don't know too much about it. But the Mayo family come from the O'Coigla. So the O'Coigla are actually found in I believe a tract in the Book of Lecan they mentioned. So yeah, there's the Ifeakra are probably the more famous bunch to me, rather than the Armagh branch. I must say I'm not really aware of them. If they're from that Armagh, they might also be Argela. The Argela are a confederacy of clans and tribes along the Cavan, Monaghan, South Armagh region. So it's possible they could be related to them too, but I wouldn't say that name's that famous to me. Sorry, so I can't give you too much on them. O'Cogleys as well. They're the O'Quigleys are the Donegal branch.
Jim O'Neill is asking a question I can deal with. Why did they spell the O'Neill name in so many different ways? Basically, because the English can't spell Irish. The English didn't understand Irish, and English names, like especially in the 16th, 15th, 17th century, that even if you take many common words, there are different spellings. So they, like O'Neill then would have been O'Neill with a father over the O and a father over the E. It became anglicized as O'Neill, but then people wrote it down the way they thought it sounded like, which could be Neal. It could be Neil, and some people got it almost right, Neill, but without the father. So it was like it. O'Neill is probably the Gaelic surname that survived the best. But some of them are just like O'Kelly. There's no K in the Irish language. Quigley. There's no Q in the Irish language. But O'Neill is essentially the difference is a father is missing, but different. It got written down different ways, and then some people were Neil, spelled in a variety of ways. Like my name Owen, Eoin. They couldn't handle that. Sometimes it would have got written down as John. Sometimes as Owen, and sometimes as various other things. Have a look at 16th century documents, and you'll have a good old laugh.
Well, also just to say that O'Neill did go through its own corruption. Now, let's just clarify one thing as well. O'Neills of Ulster aren't the only O'Neills. You have the O'Neills of the of the Burn, and you have the O'Neills of the Corcalera. No, the Dacia. Sorry, apologies. The Dacia. So they're from Wexford area, Wexford, Waterford, southeast. So you do have other O'Neills in
Waterford, the Dacia.
Waterford. There, I think I always kind of get mixed up between the two. The names are too similar, too close together on the map. And I've never had the joy of being down that way of the world. So yeah, you have three branches. You have a Dacia branch, you have O'Neills of the Burn, and you have the O'Neills of Ulster. And interestingly, I don't know the Nile that the Dacia or the Burn sort of claim descent from. But there is actually a myth, a clan tradition, another clan tradition, so we say, that O'Neill, the surname, was banned by Elizabeth I, much like the McGregor's name. I'm not sure, I've never seen the papers that state this, that prove this. I never see any laws or tracts, paperwork to prove that Elizabeth ever said or did this. But apparently, in the clan tradition of the family, that O'Neill was the name was banned, that's why I believe it then got anglicized. They changed the names to surnames like Rafferty. There's also an O'Neill branch during Oliver Cromwell's land disposition ended up in Connacht, and they became Johnsons. So you can see how, again, we were talking about how surnames change, how you now have Raffertys in Ulster and Johnsons in Connacht, who are actually originally O'Neills. So
Elizabeth didn't ban the surname. She tried to ban it as a title.
Right.
So they were not supposed to call themselves O'Neill. For some reason, that got anglicized in the 19th century. They came up with the invention of their O'Neill, their O'Donnell, etc., which is completely wrong. The title of the Lord was O'Donnell, O'Neill, McLaughlin, O'Brien. There's no there. That's a much more recent invention. And just to answer here, Tom said Corcoran, no K sound. It's not. There is a K sound. The C is often a hard C. Cavanagh with a C. There is no K letter. There's no Q letter. The Irish language has loads of sounds. It has less. The alphabet has less letters. No K, no Q, and I think there's another one.
No Y.
No Y.
W?
But the sounds are there. The sounds are there.
Kevin was sort of saying, let me see here. There was Quigley's. There's a branch who are a branch of the Lion. They claim descent from Ina Kinsella, but they're closely related to the O'Byrnes and the Kavanaghs. I think that's who you're relating to. An earlier conversation. So yeah, it just shows us that there are a lot of people have to realize that a lot of these families are very small and they have a footnote in history, maybe only a line, a sentence, a couple of words, sometimes nothing. We just know they existed. They were just in the area. There's an O'Donnell's of Mayo that are just mentioned once. O'Donnell's, and that's it. They literally just mentioned, and that is it. And some don't get mentioned at all. Some we just figured out they've been there a very long time because there's so many of them in one small cluster. So yeah, it can be quite it's referring to the O'Neills, not the Quigleys. Okay, so I caught that. There's there's an O'Neill. You just of the Madacombe. They're called the Farron O'Neills. If I remember, it is a nickname they get given for the Lion branch. I actually forgot about them. But Yeah. So someone's asking about McCormick, John McCormick. I have a video on them. Check it out. But McCormick is an Irish and Scottish surname, and it's all over Ireland. It comes from the O'Cormacans and the Cormacks. It's an Anglicization of 2 or 3 names, if I remember rightly. So, yeah. Is Michael swearing at us in Italian? I don't know. I know Ilia Passaporto. That's my only Italian I know.
No, because you can't see his hands. If he was waving his hands around in the air, he'd be swearing at you in Italian.
So yeah, I can't remember where my original thing. So you're welcome, John. My friend Colin Loughlin from Donegal tells everyone he's descended from shipwrecked Greeks. I mean, it's possible. Shipwrecks, people adopted surnames. You know, it's like I said, people adopted surnames of the lords or the leading family in that area, or maybe there's a multitude of reasons. We have things called non-paternity events. Assaults. Infidelities, etc. I mean, although I thought I read a paper now, it's a dubious paper at best, but I think they claim that of Irish non-paternity events sort of sit at 1% per generation during sort of like they estimate it was 1% per generation over the centuries, which is actually lower than Scotland and England, but again. It's not an academic paper, so I would not take it as being but it was still an interesting tidbit. I thought I'd just throw in there. Costello sounds Italian. Costello are a branch of the Burkes. The Costellos are from Connacht, and they are a branch of the Burkes, or the De Burrs, who were an Anglo-Norman family.
Just in relation to what you're talking about, I had a friend many years ago. He did a master's in history in UCD, and what he did, he went up to Armagh, and he basically counted out priests who were applying for their children to be legitimized, because all the priests' children were illegitimized, and the numbers of priests having children was massive compared to England, and I always find the surname MacTaggart or Taggart very interesting because of this. So I wonder, do people know where MacTaggart comes from? The name. It's supposed. Do you know the?
Sorry, I was typing.
Have you done the name Taggart or MacTaggart?
MacTaggart. Is it the son of a priest or son of a?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And there's very famous Scottish branch of MacTaggart, so who are of more mare lineage in the northeast. Yes, MacTaggart, MacIntaggart. There's quite a few branches of that. There's another one as well. McEnany, Clare family. So it's basically like son of the earner, but most earners were sort of layman priests, effectively. So, but yeah, so they didn't do the whole Rome thing of the popes sort of claiming it was their nephews then.
Yeah, well, like I know that Hugh O'Neill a few times when he was getting Spanish aid said that he was going to give out to the priests and ensure they didn't have concubines. And looking at this, it seems that the Irish priests habitually had concubines Many of them did. So sometimes you have to take this with a pinch of salt, a large
Yeah,
pinch
well,
of salt.
yeah, the slander, the desecrating of the name, it's all politics. Someone said there about, which I thought was quite funny, that Longley was a descended from Lagather of not a Norse name. I'm sure Lagather's not a literal reference to the Viking TV series. Um, uh, but yeah, it's there's very few actual Viking names. There's names that come from Viking words or Viking names, or not, sorry, Norse names and Norse words, but not literal descents of Vikings. Very few. The problem is that surnames start to appear, especially in places like England, towards the end. In England, especially the Viking Age is already over. In Ireland, it's there's a bit of an overlap, but a lot of Norse names in Ireland actually come from Irish families. It became a bit of a thing to have Norse names in your family genealogies. It became a bit of a status symbol, a bit of a politics, a bit of as we were adopting, not fostering kids to each other, we were building these relations, like the McAuliffes, like the Rourkes, but you do have some that sort of claim that descent from Norse families, like the McCotters and stuff. So they do exist, MacGyvers, but it's dubious at best. Like I say, that overlap of Norse settlements and Norse related surnames is a tenuous link, just because of how we were adopting the usage of those names. But in England, it's even far more tenuous because the Viking Age is well over by the time the adoption of surnames sort of happens on a widespread scale to be classed, to become noticeable.
Are there any questions coming in from TikTok? Are you monitoring your TikTok as well?
Yeah, I'm checking here. There's quite a few. Let me go back up though, because I don't want to miss to Monaghan. Yeah, the surname Monaghan surprisingly is not from Monaghan. Monaghan is found in a couple of locations, but mostly the most famous ones are down there on the bottom left of the map, part of the Cyrenaica. They're related to the likes of the Manions, the O'Kellys, those sort of families. I believe there's a couple of other places where it comes from, but I can't remember them off the top of my head right now. But that's probably the most famous branch of Monaghan's. I'm English, and apparently I pronounced Mahoney wrong. I would say that there's no such way as pronouncing any Irish name wrong if you're from another country. You have dialects that shift and change with location, and we've already sort of gone over this before. There's four main dialects in Ireland, which came about in I think it's the 14th or 15th century. So surnames get changed, as you drop words. It's like someone said to me before, but they hate the way I pronounce the word battle instead of battle. And it's a term called TT glottling, and it's only really found in some small areas of Ulster and Northern England. And so if you have the surname Battle, I'm going to pronounce it differently to how the rest of Ireland and England pronounce the name. So there's no people who get a bit precious about the way a name is pronounced, considering this is already an anglicization. The name you're pronouncing, Mahoney, is already an anglicization of an Irish name. So I wouldn't get too precious about how they get on to you about.
I've seen a map the map of Britain, basically about the word Forehead. Who pronounces it forehead? Who pronounces it forehead? I grew up saying forehead, but other people say forehead, and like there are clear distinctions in England and Scotland about the way it's pronounced, and that's just one word. And another word is scone. I think most people in Ireland pronounce it scone, but in large parts of England it's scone.
Yeah, so my wife is English, and she pronounces it scone, and I pronounce it scone.
Yeah.
Right? And now we used to have this argument. She's obviously English, and she's quite fond of the English royal family. I used to say to her, well, if you're speaking the Queen's English, the Queen, at the time, Queen Elizabeth II, pronounced it scone. So I was like, if you're speaking the Queen's English, technically scone is the correct way of pronouncing it. Is this pre-recorded or something? How come they're not reading chat? We are reading multiple chats. I'm sorry. We are reading multiple chats. What name were you looking for? I think someone was asking about Meehan before. Meehan has at least, I'd say, about 4 branches of the name Meehan. There's the Meacon of Roscommon, Desmond sort of area, sorry, and then they sort of moved up to Roscommon. But then there's the Scottish name as well, found in sort of Galloway. It became Meehan. So it's found in a few places, but sort of the Desmond region was, I think they claim to be an offshoot of the McCarthys, actually, if I remember rightly. But 100%. Merrick, Merrick has a couple of origins. Actually, I was about to do a video on these because one of them is a Welsh origin name. Comes from the MacMavericks. I don't know the Welsh variation of it, but it is of Welsh origin. And then you have the O'Mearahy. The O'Mearahy are from Up Ormond. Their relationship, their descent, the word descent, forgot what that was. So their descent's a bit up for debate. They claim descent from the Dalcarsh related to the O'Kennedys, but Dr. Paul McCarter thinks they actually are maybe a Kilkenny branch. So it's the O'Mearas, the O'Mearahys of Tipperary is sometimes anglicised to Merrick. So I'm trying to find where C. Oh, are you live elsewhere? Yeah, we're live on TikTok. We're live on YouTube as well. So Forest Spacer here is Owen's channel. So there's his chat, there's my chats. So apologies if we do miss your name. I will say though, like Lee Keane is asking about Keane. Check out the Kane video. I already have a video on them. So Lee, check out them.
Okay. There's 2 questions I want to jump in with.
Yes.
Queevin is asking about Roscommon. What's the deal with Roscommon? I'm always hearing bad things about those boys from Roscommon. They have a great castle there, and the supposed seat of Queen Maeve, but it's an ancient site going back a long time. Is in Roscommon. It's in the Midlands. it's not very. It doesn't have a very big population, so it's one of the counties, one of the smaller counties, and kind of gets overlooked. Is it there on your map?
It's there on the map. You can see it's not the borders, but you can see Roscommon on the map.
Okay. And then Sean McGrath is asking a question, controversial question. Do you think there's any bit of truth to Topographica Hibernica by our friend Gerald of Wales, Geraldus Cambrensis? Like, I know it's hard to look back now, but have you ever read it? It would be a great video to go into depth on. There are some bits, but there's a huge amount of stuff that is invented. I think he said he met a werewolf, or else he met someone who did meet a werewolf. It's either in this one or one of his other books. It's the first record of St. Patrick driving out the snakes and the toads. The toads have got forgotten, and because they were forgotten, they came back. They're now in Kerry, and I think they're spreading. And there is I think he's also the source for the idea of Bridget and the fire, the sacred fire. It also appears in him first. And there's lots of other very bizarre people / animals. Like, if you know people, kind of the stereotypical image of a medieval map would here there be monsters on the border and all these drawings. He basically describes strange people who, of course, didn't exist. He's a propagandist, basically trying to say that the Irish are savages and deserve to be conquered and have their heads chopped off by his cousins. There is some truth to it, but it's not a good source. It's not a good source at all.
Yeah, I agree. It's not a great source, but like any source, it's only like that can be said about a lot of sources that we have, like the Book of Licon or the Book of Invasions. It's what you have to take into the context of why it's been written, who's writing it, the reasons behind it. So it's like anything at that time period. There's always a grain of truth behind a lot of what's being said, or some of what's been said, but what's the reason why they're writing it? I just want to quickly go, because some people are just firing random news, so I'll just go through some really quickly. Costello Billet is their branch of the Burkes. They're found in Connacht. We've sort of already, but check out the Burke family history. I've done a video on them actually, well, briefly. I think it's one of my pinned ones. Who else was that? McCourts. The McCourts are an Ergela family. They are found in primarily around areas like Armagh, Monaghan. That's where the Ergela Confederation was. That's normally where they're attested. But I haven't done much research on them. I just know that they're sort of found in that area. They're an Ergela sept. There could be, I think there's some in Cork as well, but they're not as well attested. Someone was asking about the McKennas. McKenna has, I think, 2 or 3 branches, if I remember rightly. Monaghan, again, another sort of group, but they're not related to the Ergela. They claim descent from the Neil. Then you have the Roscommon family, who I believe either claim descent or are under the influence of the O'Connors. I think it's also found in Munster as well, but I don't know who they're related to. So there's 3 main branches, and I believe Scotland as well has a McKenna sept from Galloway, but I'm not sure of their descent. I just know it's found there. Someone's asking about the Farley name. Farrell comes from the same sort of grouping, same name. It can be the same thing. Longford is their the O'Farrell sort of main area. I've done a video on the O'Farrells, so check them out. But they're found in Anley, and then someone was asking, Harpoon was asking about the O'Dares. The O'Dares or the Adares. You've got the Adares of Scotland who would come across to Ulster, and then you have the group in Offaly as well. So there's the O'Dares, the Adares. You've got an Irish group in Offaly, and you've got the group in Ulster or Scottish descent. Please do Murphy. I have a video on the Murphys already. Can you check it out? Right. Any other questions besides surnames?
Well, we did Murphy and Guinness. Now we need to do Mr. Beamish, and we can. That's all the stouts covered.
I didn't know about the Scottish descent one. Yeah, so the Adares were landholding family, small landholding family in Galloway, I believe they were, and they would move across to just north of Lough Neagh. They would be undertakers. So during the plantation of Ulster, where a lot of Irish families had dispossessed their lands. After the 9 Years' War, the O'Dares would be one of the Scottish families granted the land in Scotland. Someone was asking there about where was it? What variation of the name was it? So I can give you. Where are you? I've already answered these ones. Clancy's, the McClancy's, very famous medical family down in Munster, modern day Munster. Had a castle and everything. Hayes. Someone's asking about Hayes. Hayes is a variation of a multiple of names. It's related to Keys, McKee, McKay, Hayes, Haida. There are up to 14 main sets of that name that get anglicised to Hayes, or one of the variations. Some of them Scottish, some of them Irish, some of them English or Norman. So yeah, there's up to 14. I couldn't name all 14. I can't remember where they're all from. But there's up to 14 of them. So there's it's I've been enjoying that one. O'Shea's and McCabe, but I have videos on both those. O'Shea's are primarily from the Corcadivna, which would be Owens. Go on, give them O'Shea history.
O'Shea's are, I know they started off in Dingle, in Corcadivna, way back when Corcadivna stretched into, covered Ivora as well, Ibrahig as well. It was the same kingdom, and I think a large amount of us. There are probably more O'Shea's now found in Ivora, for various reasons that they moved down here, and so did the O'Falvies. We were talking earlier about people moving around, and the O'Connells too. I think several of these families are starting near the peninsula of Corcadivna for various reasons. Perhaps Norman incursions moved down because North Kerry, basically, apart from O'Connor Kerry, it's old English. It's held by the Old English, so the Fitzmaurice, Fitzgerald, and a few other smaller ones. So maybe the O'Falvies, O'Shea's, and O'Connells get pushed down. The O'Connells were associated with Ballycarbery Castle. They're said to be to look after the castle for McCarthy Moore, and like they hang on in that area until Daniel O'Connell's time, and then Daniel O'Connell's uncle, who made a fortune from smuggling wine. And if you look at the map, if you look at a detailed map of South Kerry, you can see why he made a fortune from smuggling wine. So he built Derrynane House, which is which O'Connell eventually inherits.
Yeah, if you are an O'Connell, McCarthy, Fitzgerald, O'Sullivan, and O'Shea, you could see Owen's channel there. Follow it. All of you on TikTok as well. He's starting his TikTok, so get across there and follow it. So he is far more knowledgeable about Munster than I am. So I would definitely, if you've gotten interested, if you are an O'Connell, if you are a O'Shea, if you are any of the names you see, sort of, hang on, I'll bring them up. If you have any of these names in your family tree, Barrys, O'Driscolls, Collins, McDonoughs, McAuliffes, he's probably got history that relates to you in some way. Fitzgerald's and McCarthy's two main ones. You were talking about the McConnells or O'Connells. There are other steps of the O'Connells. The O'Connell of Ergela, there's a branch of them, and the O'Connells of the Iviner, so they're related to or Imania, depending on pronunciation. They're a Connacht dynasty. So you do get variations in Ulster and Connacht as well that are unrelated to the Connells of the Ifigente or the Connell Gavra of West Limerick. McCabe are an Ulster set of, they are from the Macaba. They are a Gallowglass family. I believe I have a video on them too, and the O'Sheas. So, is O'Connell the same as McConnell? Yeah, we touched on this before. Yes, effectively, it can be the same name. It's just how the name was spelt later on in the 20th century. There are some Dutch McKays too. I wonder if they're actually Scottish McKays. A lot of Scots ended up in Europe, especially around the Netherlands and around Scandinavia. Scandinavia and the Netherlands became quite Protestant and then had very close ties to a lot of Scotland. You do have a lot of Scottish settler families in those areas. Nobility would, same way you have Irish families in the wild geese in Spain, France, and even, but not as well recorded, but still there, Italy. So, and then you would have both Scots and Irish families in Germany. So, but in smaller numbers. So you will find.
You can, buying alcoholic drinks is an interesting way of tracing wild geese families. Like there's a cognac called Hennessy.
Yes.
And then someone bought me a McCarthy wine from France. And there are other Irish names you can find on French wine occasionally.
I believe I don't know if she's still alive. She was very old at the time when I read this about 10 years ago. She was the second richest noble in Spain. And I believe she is a descendant of the a direct descendant of the O'Donnells. She was she was a duchess, all her titles. She kind of became famous to me, or became on my radar, because she became quite famous for being A, wealthy, and B, having a boyfriend who was like 40 years younger than her. She was in her 80s and she had a 40-year-old boyfriend.
I think her family, that O'Donnell family, has married into a much more powerful family. And in Spain, as in Portugal, they have more than one surname. So she basically, I think not she, I'm not up with the intermarriages of the Spanish aristocracy, but one of the O'Donnells did well and married like a duke or into a duke's family, and that name, the O'Donnell name, continued.
Yes, I know when I read her name, it was about 14 names long, and I didn't. It was very. someone's asking about Trainer. Trainer is an Agela family in South Down. Normally it gets anglicized to Armstrong because it means the same thing, like a strong arm. So a lot of trainers are, and then you've got the Irish trainers, and then I believe it works the other way as well. You have a Scottish name as well, the trainer, so which end up living in the same area. O'Farrell's, I've already touched them, Carson. They are from Longford. I have a video on them though, if you want to go and check them out.
Here's a question to throw up. Tom's last comment there. McCorcoran and O'Corcoran are genetically different, unrelated.
Yeah.
How accurate do you think? Like many people now I see online, I'm descended from this family, I'm descended from that family. How accurate, and I know, is it Irish origins or something? He's put
yes
a lot of that. I must admit I am skeptical to the use of DNA in this sort of sense. What's your opinion on that? Just to move away from families now.
Yeah. So to move away from the family, but the McCorcorans and the O'Corcorans, he's saying, are genetically different. In a large sense, it's kind of true. We've already well established in this conversation of different steps and unrelated families and stuff. And obviously, families are anglicizing their names the same way in the same areas. So you have Trainer spelled Trainor, and then with a Y up the road, and you could sort of see how the patterns emerge of. So in a large part, it's kind of true, but at the same time, it's wrong, because this is happening at the time of the Industrial Revolution, times like this, where families are moving into hubs, trading hubs, city hubs, industrial areas, and then they are adopting the name of that area. And, all the Corcorans are adopting O'Corcoran in that area, McCorcoran. When you start to go into these city areas, the lines of that statement becomes almost wrong. It's completely. It doesn't overlay the same in the countryside, where two townlands, similar names, adopt similar name. So it can be true and false at the same time, depending. But obviously, again, this is a snapshot of a very specific point in history, because of migration. We know about all the multiple migrations that happen. That's almost like saying all Hamills are from the Scottish Hamills, but actually, no, we know that all Campbells are Scottish Campbells, when we know that there are both unrelated Irish Hamills and Campbells. So yes, but then we bring this into the how accurate is that statement with genetics, as in when we talk about Irish origins and his research, and how likely is it that an individual is related to the founder of that surname? How, like Niall Noglach or Niall Glundov, who's the actual progenitor of the surname O'Neill. Again, it depends on what you mean related. Most likely, if you are an individual moving into a territory and you're adopting the surname O'Neill, you probably are marrying into families who are related to the O'Neills. So you are going to be of the same genetic material as an O'Neill. If you're talking about Y-DNA, which is only passed on through father and son, and then you have haplogroups. I think most DNA groups are doing a very good job of separating branches and finding out that there are a lot of related groups, clusters. So we can see the O'Neills of X, Y, and Z are descended from this progenitor. We can see the McCarthys and the O'Sullivans. The McCarthys and O'Sullivans have done a great job of proving that they are related distantly, and that many McCarthys are from the same paternal lines, but they adopted the name at different times. But with that doesn't come this whole like eugenics thing of like, well, we are true. If I am related to this group, I am more Irish than someone whose family came in 100 years later or 500 years later. I think we have to be very careful with using it in a way that was never used before. So why are we using it that way today? It's just that we're coming into new territory that we just need to be very careful of.
Yeah. I'm quite skeptical because I think people are using DNA data and ignoring the history.
Mm-hmm.
So if we look at the O'Neills of Dungannon, Shane O'Neill's mother or grandmother was a daughter of the Earl, the Fitzgeralds of Kildare, and I maybe it was even twice over. The O'Neills of Dungannon married the Fitzgeralds on a number of occasions, and then I think Hugh O'Donnell, I have a feeling, or his brother, married another someone from the Kildare. There is a huge intersection among elite families.
Mm-hmm.
There's a huge intermarriage among elite families. If you take the O'Briens, the fifth Earl of Thomond was sent over. He grew up in London, and he became completely anglicised, and they've been essentially the family, the Thomond or Inchiquin, whichever they're called now, have been anglicised for 400 or 500 years. They're intermarrying with English elite. They're still O'Briens, but that raises big problems to me with DNA. It can identify certain things. It can help identify branches, but who they go on Ancestry and stuff like that, and then they start claiming. I see it online. Oh, Earl of somebody was my 500 great grandfather, and I'm descended from Charlemagne. I'm descended from whatever, Macbeth or the Duke of Argyll. And I see it in my videos. People put, oh yeah, I put out a video on O'Sullivan Bear. They say, oh yeah, I'm descended from him. Well, how do you know? He fled to Spain and dies there or gets killed there fairly shortly afterwards. I think the O'Sullivan Bear line, the direct one, becomes extinct, and then it gets lost in Spain. The records are not good. How do people claim that they are descendants of these Irish lords?
I think it's a mixture of sometimes you will have people who just claim it because they have a surname in their family tree. We have a lot of erroneous misinformation when it comes to genealogy. There's a lot of family trees out there that are online that are just wrong, and people take them as fact without checking sources. There is, by and large, about a 200-year blank spot in Irish genealogy. And even then, what happens after those 200 years is, it's the main lines. It's father sons of the highest, most prominent families, not your average, not the 90% of the Irish population.
Not the peasant. Not the peasant.
Yeah, not the peasant, not the working class, not the minor lords even. This is just the elite of the elite. But like I say, 200-year blank spot, you're looking at 4, 5, 6 generations where anything can happen. But then again, they're not wrong. They are related, but so is everyone else. When you're talking about 500, 1,000 years, 1,500 years, everyone on this island is related to everyone, and then we're related to everyone in Britain in some degree, and then we're related to everyone in Europe to some degree. We're all interconnected. I think when you start gatekeeping Ireland for the Irish, and then you think you're this pure genetic, the only way you're this pure genetic Irishman is if your family have lived on a tiny island and married each other for thousands of years, which didn't happen. So you're not. We are all interconnected. We're all descended. If you're European, you're descended from Charlemagne in some degree. If you're Asian, you've probably got some Genghis Khan in there somewhere. 5 times over. I'm probably descended from Charlemagne about 10 times over from the same, like from multiple lines. So, because when you start getting further and further back, the population gets smaller, but the numbers keep growing in your family tree. So you get to a point where there's more people on your family tree. You only go back 1,000 years. There's more people on your family tree than there were in Ireland at the time, because you get multiple of the same people appearing. So yeah, using it in that way is a bit strange, but using it in a curious, I'm related to Niall Glundov. I want to know more about this individual who is in my family tree 10 times over, fine. But using it in any sort of other sense of like, I am more entitled to the space because my family have been here 1,000 years, but your family have already been here 500 years, is a ridiculous attitude to have.
Yeah, I saw 2 different things. One, last year, the year before, the O'Malley clan are trying to do something with the descent of Granuaile. And I kind of said, hold on. I don't think any of her children carried the name O'Malley.
No.
Her main heir was Tibbet Burke, Theobald. And I think some of the others may have been de Lacys. So I was kind of, what sort of history is this? Because looking the O'Malleys for the descent of Granuaile, you're looking in the wrong direction. And second, I better not go into too much details. I might get us into trouble. I saw on Facebook and the internet this American guy, and his surname was an Irish surname, and he had claimed to have found papers. So he was descended from certain sept. It looked a bit dodgy to me, and there was this gap as well. But he was claiming to be a lord, and some Eastern European royalty had said that he was really a lord. It was really funny, but then he invented a tartan and stuff like that. It was bizarre. And then just the third one, I'm not going to name the family. I don't want to get us in trouble.
No, I mean, I've spoken to people about this before, about clan chiefs. I am a big supporter of clan chiefs and the idea, but to be used and like clan coats of arms, but to be used in a way that sort of all encompassing, and a way to share family histories, and clan gatherings can be a really good thing for connecting families, connecting history. Some clans have even bought back clan castles to rebuild them, to fix them up, to protect history. I think there's some really good things that can be built from it. But it's like anything. It's like cake. Cake's not bad for you, but if you have too much of it, it's bad for you. And I think people need to be very wary that if you start having, there are families, I believe, that get a bit over the top with it, and it's like the clan chief has this all-authoritative power over individuals who are only connected because their surnames are the same, which is a ridiculous sentiment. But there are, at the same time, they can be used in such great ways, and I think they can be used positively. But it's but a clan chief should be more ceremonial and honorific, and a symbol, but not a point of authoritative genetic.
Yeah. I prefer the idea of clan association. Like, I don't like the idea of clan chief. And like, I see this group, the Irish clan, like, okay, there is the O'Neill, he's a descendant of the O'Neills of Clandeboy. He lives in Portugal. His family left Ireland in 17 something. He's of Irish descent, but is also of Portuguese descent. His history is interesting. But like the Lord Inchquin is English. I think there's like someone claiming to be McGillicuddy who's also English. And there's a few other ones. And like, I don't like when people say, "Oh, I am McCarthy Moore by right of descent." Well, hold on a second. Okay, McCarthy Moore is a bad choice because that was they tended to practice primogeniture, but most of the others didn't, and it wasn't law. So, if someone wants to be clan chief, like say O'Neill, the O'Neills of Dungannon, there are probably 500,000 people descended from the last Derby in Ireland at the moment, maybe more. Some people, one or two people, might have a piece of paper, but I don't think of O'Neills of Dungannon. But I don't like the idea of these people claiming to be clan chief by descent because their descent is more senior than anyone else's. That's not Gaelic culture.
I agree with you. I agree that so a lot of these clan groupings just do it by voting, I believe there are even individuals who've become clan chief who are not even paternally descended; they are maternally descended. And because they've been voted unanimously, because they are stewards of the history, basically. That's the way they see it, and they want to protect and share and unite and combine. And I think fantastic. I think I'm all up for it. But yes, I do believe that some people then use a specific lineage and paternal descent as some sort of right, authoritative right, like we live in some feudal system again, and it doesn't work like that. So I think, and they need to have a woman that can trace herself to Grania, well, the land inheritance to match. I mean, Grania wasn't even the chief. It was more likely her brother or her uncle that was ruling. She just had a lot of political swing and became very famous later on. She most likely wasn't the ruler. The only thing that she had on her side is she had a very powerful husband, and her sons were very active politically. But she most likely wasn't the clan chief. So claiming her descent from her is fine. It doesn't really, if the O'Malley's want to do something with that descent, that's up to them. But using it as some sort of stick to beat others of descent through her uncles and brothers is a ridiculous notion. I'm amazed some of us survived the Vikings. 99.9% of the population survived the Vikings. they weren't as prolific here as they were in England, and even then, or Scotland, and even then they weren't as prolific as the stories say. They didn't go around massacring everyone.
One thing, there were a lot of massacres in the 16th century, but the population seems to rebound very quickly afterwards, which raises a couple of points. A, maybe people had loads and loads of kids who survived, or B, a lot of what the English reported at the time, i.e. the number of people they killed, are wrong. So, or the two things can be true. There was a strong population growth in the 17th, 18th century, and like the English claimed to, kill loads of people a lot of the time, but quite often there's a huge amount of exaggeration in these things.
Yeah, well, all numbers, battles, deaths, massacres, genocides, and they all get exaggerated. We know Cromwell used the Portadown massacre as well, not just him, but his contemporaries, his peers, were doing it in Parliament to sort of push on the invasion of Ireland. Really sort of egging that on, and it happened. The Irish did it too. When in Kilkenny, when what was it? What was the army called? The group in Kilkenny? Yeah, the Confederation. Yeah. Again, they were talking about massacres, and the church was sort of trying to jostle in their sort of 50 pence piece, and we have to be very wary of numbers. Very wary of numbers.
Yeah, very, very.
Unless someone could turn around and I went round and I marked every single one with a red cross and I counted them all, and this is the tally chart. Even then, I still wouldn't believe it.
And then I think, like many people, it's the same. And take any historical book, whether it's about Napoleonic Wars, 19th century wars, people seem to count 1, 2, 3, many. And then many hundreds, many thousands, many hundreds of thousands. I know there's a German historian, 19th century historian, I think Delbruck, and he wrote a history of warfare. And one of the things is he looks at classical accounts and tries to work out, he says, okay, I think in one of the Persian invasions of Greece, the Greeks said that he had 100,000 men or 200,000 men. He said, within like a square meter, you can fit X amount of soldiers. So if you had this amount, the army would stretch for 25 miles. So therefore, this is an exaggeration. Sort of a history and numbers is full of exaggeration.
Sam, you were saying interesting Norse, whole different story. Yeah, don't apologize. Don't say sorry. You said you were you made a statement saying you were amazed that that they survived Viking. That's not, you're just using the information you have to make a statement. It's fine. You haven't asserted anything. Nobody's. Don't apologize. Well, and we're happy to tell you otherwise. I recently learned about the German Palatine community research in my history. Yeah, the 3,000 German Palatines sent to Limerick. Again, they were moved there because, they sort of stopped in England and then were moved on to Ireland because of war, famine, harsh winters. From the electoral Palatine, the German territories. Yeah, they had that's another large scale displacement, and they're coming into Ireland. Again, numbers vary depending on the historian. This is like 1709, so the records are a little bit more detailed than you would get from 10th century records. But yes, you've got to be very wary whenever, and it's the same with anything. But we've talked about this before about when you're reading records, when you're reading, what is the purpose of that? What is the purpose of that document? Why is it being written in the first place? What is it intended to do? Normally there's every time there's a reason behind it, that isn't the reason stated. So you just got to be very, very wary. Like, I get it all the time. People say, I'm related to the Milesians because it says so in the Book of Invasions. And you're just like, yeah, but why are they writing the Book of Invasions, for goodness sake? Yeah, I mean, but I think we're getting towards the end here. We're up to 2 hours, well, hour and 55. So um, I am reading seven different translations of the Ulster Cycles. Yeah, I mean, it's the same with the Ulster Annals. I only ever read the English version, but apparently, if you read the Irish version, that you sort of get a different understanding of it.
And then another thing that people often forget about all of these manuscripts is that there's different versions.
mm,
And different stories are added in at different times. And that's what, like, when people talk about Laura Gabal the Book of Invasions,
mm,
and like there's a couple of parts of that that are much later.
yeah,
And I say, hold on a second, like you have to actually go and look. You to, to though they're very, very complicated sources because they're written in medieval, early medieval Irish. They are written at different times. You need to understand the context. And just because one version of the Ulster Cycle says one thing, the other ones don't. It doesn't. I get this when when I did videos about Bridget not being a goddess. Um, People seem to think if they've read it written down in English, therefore it's true. Whereas many of these documents, they were only translated in the 19th century. They're crying out, they need newer translations. And the translation kind of creates an authorized version which doesn't exist. So you have five, you actually, if you go to the original translation, you can see which ones they used. So but now so many stories are written based on, as Tom says, copies of copies of copies. It creates its own sort of history. It can be very problematic.
any tips researching landed families pre 1650? So you're talking about the 1647 dissolutions. It's not called dissolutions, but there was a book written in 1647, which is the basically monitors the landed gentry of Oliver Cromwell's, the land given by to soldiers. They did a big survey all around Ireland. Well, 90% of Ireland. Lots of Ulster are missing. Bits of Ulster are missing. No, there's not really, because I mean there are tracts, land tracts, and records. There's fiants, Elizabeth I, and just Tudor fiants as well about land. There are mentions of Norman cantrids, etc. And some of those have Irish families in them. We have a general location, but if you're wanting to know specific fields, it's really only in these. Whenever the Tudor conquest of Ireland, when they started to see who they were giving the land to, and parceling it up, and that's when we start getting the better records. So yeah, if you're wondering which field.
There is the Desmond survey.
Yes, and the Ormond Book of Ormond as well, the Red Book.
Yeah, no, hold on. This Desmond survey is of McCarthy Moore's land. It's from 1696 to 97. It's on the UCC Celt site. And essentially you can see who owns what in Ivora and part of Beara and what they paid. It's a very, very interesting document. There was some sort of survey done of the Earl of Desmond's land, which led to the Munster plantation.
Yes.
There's also the composition of Connacht. The Treaty of Mellifont, if you can find the original, it's not always easy to find. If you go into the details of the people who are forgiven, essentially, you can find a lot of stuff. Going through the state papers, which you can find calendars of online, you can find a lot of names. You have to do a lot of digging.
Yeah,
But a good start are treaties and stuff like that when they're essentially trying to map out who owns what.
yeah. The only problem you'll have with a lot of the earlier stuff, is it will say owns so many plough lands in, and it will give a townland. It doesn't give, and often these townlands are made up of several
Yeah.
plough lands. So it doesn't. That's what I'm saying. It doesn't give specific. You can find clans, families living in specific places, names. We have the names for it, but as if you wanted to find out which landed families and the lands they own, it's very, very hard to do down to that sort of level. But like Owen has said, if you want to know like a general location, it's a really those are some of the great sources you can use. Book of Ormond's got some really good sources. Who else was I about to say there before? There is, I can't remember, but he's giving you plenty of sources to go for. I was looking at them not too long ago, and I can't remember. What about the Desmond of Wexford and the Medici of Florence? I'm guessing you meant Desmond, not Redmond. But it's a fanciful link. Interested to know about your knowledge of the O'Driscolls. I know everything about the O'Driscolls. They're one of my favorite families, but I haven't got the time to cover them tonight, unfortunately. Because we're about to, how far back did the McCarthy clan reign? Check out my video on the Oanocta and their rise as they dispossessed the Corkle era. Luke Healy, thank you. I've my first paper that's been published this year in the Tipperary Historical Journal. Oh, very interesting. Please send me a link to that whenever. Just PM me or DM, sorry, on TikTok. Right. I think that's it. That's all we've got time for. For tonight, with 2 hours, we're up to 11 o'clock. I work in the morning. And Owen's got work as well, so he's got family commitments, and so I think, Owen, if anyone wants to follow you or help support your work, how can they do that?
Like, follow me on Ferris Fawcett, also on TikTok, same name. And you can donate like either through YouTube or through Buy Me a Coffee, which is buymeacoffee.com/Ferris Fawcett. And
Brilliant.
of course, follow videos, leave nice comments. And please don't insist that Loch Crew is the burial place of the prophet Jeremiah. I am actually going to do a video about that fairly soon.
Yeah, like I says, follow him on TikTok. We're trying to get his numbers up on TikToks because he's only just started coming on this last couple of months. So get across there. If you see what I made, just if you want to just like the videos and comment in them. If you want your surname covered, comment in the videos so I can add it to my list. I also do a live every second Wednesday for my members on YouTube. Check out the YouTube channel as well as longer form videos on there. Same with Forest Fastest. So until then, thank you, Sam. Thank you very much. And everyone else who's commented, liked on TikTok, who gifted, thank you so very much. Really appreciate it. We'll leave it there for tonight. We'll see you next week.
Slán.